To the arrest of more than a dozen members of a motorcycle club. Here's a look at the scene at 3rd and Pryor. Again, this was in Lee Summit. 18 members of the Pagan Motorcycle Club were indicted by a federal grand jury for attacking members of rival clubs.
May 2025, 3 Pagans bikers walk into federal court. They plead guilty: assault with dangerous weapons, attempted murder, firearms charges. But here's what shocks everyone. They got patches for it, rewards for violence, trophies for shooting a man 7 times. This isn't just gang violence. This is systematic, organized, incentivized. For years, they hid the truth. Now, under oath, they're finally admitting what they did. Christopher McGowen, also known as Mac, 41, of Platte City, Missouri, pleaded guilty on May 13, 2025, to 2 counts of assault with a dangerous weapon in aid of racketeering, 1 count of attempting to commit assault with a dangerous weapon in aid of racketeering, and 1 count of discharging a firearm during and in relation to a crime of violence. Brandon Hodge, also known as Youngblood, 26, of Springfield, Missouri, pleaded guilty on May 14, 2025, to 1 count of assault with a dangerous weapon in aid of racketeering. Arthur Reynolds III, also known as Straight Edge, 48, of Independence, Missouri, pleaded guilty on May 15, 2025, to 1 count of assault with a dangerous weapon in aid of racketeering, 1 count of discharging a firearm during and in relation to a crime of violence, and 1 count of felon in possession of firearms. Under federal statutes, McGowen and Reynolds face up to life in federal prison without parole. Hodge faces up to 20 years in prison without parole. The Pagans, East Coast dominance. The Pagans were established in Prince George's County, Maryland by Lou Dobkin, beginning in 1957 and officially organized in 1958. The club had an initial 13 founding members. They were a fairly non-violent group until 1965. A swelling mass of new members put the Pagans on the path to evolve into an outlaw motorcycle gang. The Pagans claim to have invented and adopted the 1%er patch, referencing newspaper articles that branded them as troublemakers. Their growth under the leadership of John Satan Marin saw the Pagans grow to nearly 5,000 members in the early 1970s. The Pagans have been tied to traditional organized crime, including La Cosa Nostra in cities like Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and New York. They are currently active in over 20 states, primarily along the East Coast. Members are required to ride only Harley-Davidson motorcycles. Members are not permitted to quit or retire from the club, and can only leave if they are expelled. May 2022, the Grain Valley Assault. On May 30th, 2022, McGowen and other members of the Pagans and their support club assaulted a lone rival gang member at a business in Grain Valley, Missouri. In addition to fists, one Pagan used an axe handle during the assault, causing physical injury to the victim. This was the first documented incident. A rival motorcyclist at a business, outnumbered by Pagans, beaten with fists and an axe handle. Axe handles are a signature Pagan's weapon. They're legal to carry, devastating in close combat, and send a clear message. September 2, 2022, the Topeka Plan. On September 3, 2022, McGowen and other members of the Pagans and their support club traveled to Topeka, Kansas, to carry out a revenge attack against another rival motorcycle gang. The plan was to catch a stray and smash on sight any rival member they saw. The Pagans were aware that the rival motorcycle gang was having an event in Topeka that day, and the plan was to use either an axe handle or a gun on one of the rival gang members. After arriving in Topeka, a rival member was spotted in a hotel parking lot. As a member of the Pagans prepared to shoot the rival, a disagreement occurred among members, and the group returned to the Kansas City area. This reveals organizational intent. They traveled to another state with weapons specifically to attack rivals. They had a plan. They had targets. September 2022, the Blue Springs shooting. Later that same day, McGowen, Hodge, Reynolds, and other members of the Pagans and their support club chased and forced a lone rival club member from the road in Blue Springs, Missouri. Various members were armed with firearms and at least one axe handle. McGowen, Hodge, Reynolds, and the others confronted the victim on the side of the roadway, and ultimately, the The victim was shot 7 times, with wounds to his knee, thigh, forearm, biceps, buttocks, and back of his leg. 7 gunshot wounds. This wasn't a warning. This was an attempted execution that failed. The victim survived. Barely. The reward system. Following these events, McGowen, Hodge, Reynolds, and others present at the various assaults were awarded patches for their participation. This is what makes the Pagans different. They openly rewarded violence. They gave patches for assaults. They incentivized attempted murder. Patches in motorcycle club culture represent achievement and status. The Pagans made violence a form of service. Attack rivals, get rewarded. Shoot someone, earn recognition. This transforms individual aggression into organizational terrorism. Members must actively seek opportunities to attack. They must prove loyalty through violence, and the club rewards them for it. The evidence. On May 11, 2023, law enforcement executed a search warrant for Reynolds' residence in Independence, Missouri. Inside, officers located 7 firearms, various calibers of ammunition, body armor, and Pagan's motorcycle gang-related items. 7 firearms, body armor. This wasn't a hobbyist collection. This was a gang member's arsenal. Reynolds has a prior felony conviction. On January 24, 2005, he pleaded guilty to felony aggravated robbery and was sentenced to 61 months in custody. As a convicted felon, Reynolds was prohibited from possessing firearms. The 7 guns in his home represented 7 separate federal crimes. More guilty pleas. Mark Crump, also known as Navajo, 55, of Lee's Summit, Missouri, pleaded guilty to 1 count of assault resulting in serious bodily injury in aid of racketeering. On July 20, 2023, Crump, Jared Hammer, and another member of the Pagans assaulted a lone rival motorcycle gang member at a bar and grill in North Kansas City. Hammer told the victim that they were there to shut the victim's club down, then flipped a table over, knocking the victim to the ground. Once on the ground, Hammer, Crump, and the other Pagans member began stomping, kicking, and punching the victim. The victim later told law enforcement that those who assaulted him were wearing steel-toed boots. The victim was transported by ambulance to a local hospital, suffering from a head contusion, rib fracture, hemothorax, a left pulmonary contusion, pneumothorax, and a traumatic brain injury. Steel-toed boots, stomping and kicking. Head contusion means bruising on the brain. Hemothorax means blood accumulating between the chest wall and lungs. Pneumothorax means a collapsed lung. Traumatic brain injury means permanent damage. The larger investigation. In August 2024, 18 members and associates of the Pagan'S Motorcycle Club were indicted by a federal grand jury for a series of armed assaults against members of rival motorcycle clubs. A law enforcement operation resulted in 15 arrests along with the execution of 7 search warrants. The operation also resulted in the seizure of more than 40 firearms, thousands of rounds of ammunition, body armor, and a marijuana grow operation. According to the indictment, Pagan'S is a violent criminal organization that engaged in racketeering. The indictment alleges that Pagan'S is territorial and protects its territory from rival motorcycle clubs through violence and intimidation. The primary rivals to Pagan'S in Missouri include the Hells Angels, Outlaws, El Forastero, Galloping Goose, Sons of Silence, and the Banditos. Pagan'S tried to eliminate other motorcycle gangs completely from their territory by assaulting, robbing, extorting, and sometimes attempting to murder them. Why they finally talked. These guilty pleas reveal what the Pagan'S tried to hide: systematic violence as organizational policy. The guilty pleas destroy the narrative that individual members might commit crimes, but the organization itself was just a motorcycle club. McGowen admitted assault with dangerous weapons and discharging a firearm. Hodge admitted assault with dangerous weapons. Reynolds admitted assault, firearms charges, and being a felon in possession. They admitted the assaults were in aid of racketeering. That legal phrase connects individual violence to organizational crime. It proves the assaults weren't personal disputes. They were acts committed to further the Pagan'S criminal enterprise. The defendants likely pled guilty because the evidence was overwhelming. Witnesses, surveillance footage, forensic evidence, and seized weapons created an airtight case. Going to trial risked longer sentences. But the guilty pleas also reveal the Pagans couldn't protect them. The defendants chose self-preservation over organizational loyalty. 3 words appear repeatedly in the court documents: in aid of racketeering. Those words transform individual assaults into federal crimes. They connect violence to organization. They prove the Pagans operate as a criminal enterprise. Christopher McGowen, Brandon Hodge, and Arthur Reynolds admitted what the Pagans tried to hide for decades. They attacked rivals to protect territory. They used weapons to intimidate competitors. They earned patches for violence. The victims survived, but barely. One man took 7 bullets. Another suffered traumatic brain injury, collapsed lung, and fractured ribs. A third was beaten with an axe handle, all because they wore the wrong patches in the wrong territory. McGowen and Reynolds face up to life in federal prison. Hodge faces up to 20 years. The message is clear. The Pagans can no longer hide behind the facade of brotherhood. Their violence is documented. Their reward system is exposed. Their criminal enterprise is proven. What they hid for decades is now public record. The patches weren't symbols of achievement. They were rewards for assault. The brotherhood wasn't about loyalty. It was about organized crime. 3 men pled guilty. More await sentencing. Others face similar charges. The Pagans Motorcycle Club is under siege from federal prosecutors armed with RICO statutes and mountains of evidence. What they hid is now exposed. What they denied is now admitted. And what they claimed was brotherhood is now proven to be organized crime.